Welcome to Integration Nation for Allison Sullivan's Integrative Mental Health Team. I'm Dee Daniels. We have the magic in this episode.
It's total magic. I can't tell you how many times people have said, I just want a magic wand. Give me a magic wand. So guess what? We're given the magic wand today.
We've got it. We've got the magic wand.
The magic wand of mental health.
I can't wait for this. And you are going to want to stay locked into this episode. No doubt about it. This is going to be a lot of fun. But first, we want to talk about Integration Nation, what it's all about, where it comes from.
Here's the point. There's tons of great tools out there for mental health and wellness. Each of them individually can be really beneficial. I became an integrative therapist because when you logically weave together all of these parts, the sum is greater than the parts. So that's the whole point of integrative mental health, is understanding each of the parts and understanding how to weave them together, which is the point in the protocols that we introduce to our listeners from time to time. It is the logical interrelating and weaving together of the component parts so that people can get the maximum benefit. And educating people through this podcast improves access, improves understanding. It opens doors to understanding, and that's what we're all about, building an integration nation to empower people to live their best lives.
I love that so much. It is truly the passion behind this podcast and behind your work. And I love that you invite other leaders within the integrative community, because this is also just helping develop that layer. And how can we use that layer as a part of the whole?
Yes, that's the whole point. You know, none of us can do it all. None of us have it all. It's the actual embodiment of an integrative approach, is collaborating, adding in, weaving together, layering, all of that. And so inviting other people to be on here, share their experience, share their expertise, really continues to empower people to do the same.
And you'll find fantastic guests that come from all kinds of great areas in the integrative world, including yoga, including massage, including herbal medicine. I mean, it's all there, and it all ties in.
All ties in. And we've got even more cool guests on the way.
Allison'sIntegrativeHealth.org is the website. It is the hub. It is the place that you want to go. It is sort of your map at the mall. You know, the one you walk in?
Yes, it's the directory. It says, you are here.
You are here.
And it shows you how to get where you want to go. It's a very easy website to navigate. At the top right corner is my personal favorite, our cute little buttons that direct people to all of our social media, YouTube, Pinterest, where we have probably 1,015,000,000, maybe 1,016,000,000 original aromatherapy blends to use for emotional wellness. That's just one of the boards we have on Pinterest. So you'll want to check out our Pinterest board. Instagram, Facebook. We've got tons of helpful tabs across the homepage of the website that connects you not only to the podcast, it connects you to our workshops, to our team, how to contact us, how to subscribe to the newsletter. And subscribing to the newsletter is as beneficial as subscribing to the podcast. Number one, they're both free. Number two, it gives you tons of educational information. And when you're a newsletter subscriber, you get the first wave of dates and times and access to the workshops that we do.
Fantastic. It is the place to go. Allison'sIntegrativeHealth.org is the website. So check it out and it will be your map, I promise. Let's get into this. This magic behind this is wonderful. And it sort of ties into something we were talking about in another episode about listening.
Yes, listening is definitely a superpower. However, dun, 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 the magic wand of mental health is none other than empathy.
Empathy.
Empathy is the magic wand.
Wow.
And here's the really great news about empathy. It is not a trait that you are born with. It is a skill you develop. So it is inclusive. We can all have access to the magic wand, which is what really makes it a true magic wand.
And that's what we want. Like, we're all looking for that, okay, I need the one big tool. Can I just get the one big tool out of the toolbox that's going to like clean up some of this mess?
Yes, the other things that we've talked about, listening, self-care, emotional literacy, all of that stuff are parts of empathy. Empathy really, though, is the experience of understanding another person's thoughts, feelings, experience. It's from their point of view, not from our point of view. So when you really think about that, you can start to see how those other things I mentioned are parts of empathy. You have to truly be able to listen to really understand and step into another person's shoes. I think a lot of times empathy gets confused with sympathy for people. They're very different. Sympathy is about feeling sad for someone who's going through something. Empathy really is about compassion. It includes compassion, and it really is stepping into how someone else, because of your knowledge of them, how someone else is experiencing a situation and meeting them there.
So I think that one of the biggest questions around empathy that I hear a lot, and that I'm sure that you hear a lot as well in here, is that how can I, when I haven't gone through this person's exact circumstances, how can I tap into the empathy? I want to, I know them, I love them, I want to tap into that. What's the direction? How do I get there?
Okay, so we could probably do an entire episode on that one question. There's so much there. I do think you're right. We need to address that first. Then I'd like to kind of explain for people the different aspects of empathy. And then I'd like to dive into some pretty common obstacles that people experience in relationship. And all of this is important because empathy is an instant connector both to yourself and to another person. Okay, so back to your question. The simple answer is because at the root, empathy doesn't have to do with us. That's the whole sticking point. We use how we're experiencing something and overlay that onto how they must be experiencing it, which is not empathy. That's not empathy. It's really about, because I know who this person is, what matters to them, and because I'm listening, my mirror neurons are there, I'm looking at the body language, I'm looking at this person's facial expressions, I'm really present, which is where all the mindfulness stuff that we talk about comes into play. I know how they are experiencing this, and I'm going to meet them there.
Right. Almost like you can be experiencing it and maybe in your mind making a list of like, I see this emotion, I see this body language.
Yes.
And that's maybe how you stay out of yourself.
Yes. Yes. However, I think it's important to talk about the notion of self-empathy because when we can develop self-empathy, it does give us a template to use to develop empathy in the relationships that we have outside of ourselves. So self-empathy is how can I be present for myself? And automatically, I'm guessing you're thinking about roadblocks to that. Oh, yeah, well, it's not judgment. If I'm judging myself, that's not being present for myself. It's not criticism. So that's already a starting place to look at. When you are using self-empathy, you're just being with yourself in what's going on.
I like that.
To start with.
Yeah.
You know, it's about, okay, wow, I am really insecure right now. This experience has really upset my sense of equilibrium. I'm not sure where to find my place. Wow, that makes me really uncomfortable. At the heart of it is just kind of sitting in that and acknowledging it.
Right.
I'm allowed to be insecure. I'm allowed to be uncomfortable, and I'm going to witness that. So I guess another way to say it is holding space for yourself to start.
Right.
And then it's about compassion. This makes sense. Of course you are, because you value this. This is important to you. You were hoping for this. You worked really hard for this. That's the second, validating yourself. So of course you're upset. And then that kind of gives a space for resilience to emerge. That kind of, okay, what am I going to do now?
What a beautiful template for that. And how easy for you to start with yourself, because you can probably identify all of that pretty quickly when you hold space for it.
Yes. And if you can't, then listen to episode 207 again, the lowdown on letdown, because that's where we really kind of dive into emotional literacy to help people gain access to really understanding their emotional landscape.
Yeah. And what those exact feelings are, so you can name them.
So you can name them.
Yeah.
Yes.
You got to name it to claim it. You do.
There it is.
It's true, though.
Name it to claim it.
You do.
Totally do. Otherwise, back to your directory analogy, you're just walking around in circles.
Yes.
Because you haven't even allowed yourself to say, I want to go to this store. Mm-hmm. If you can't name it, you can't get there.
Listen, recently the kitchen store moved in the mall, and I'm telling you, I didn't go to the map first. I thought, I'll find it. 10 minutes later.
It's not there.
It's exactly that.
Yes.
You're just walking in circles and you're lost.
Yes.
And how sad is that feeling? Like, that's one of the biggest feelings, that you're like, okay, I don't know what to do. If I'm lost, I don't know what to do.
Yes. Yes. So that's when people want to dive in and just start throwing darts at the board.
Yeah.
And that's what creates a lot of disconnection in relationships. I don't think for many people there's ill intent. I think it's just a lack of understanding. So that's the other reason I wanted to do this particular episode. It really is a cornerstone.
So that's a beautiful template that you set up, that we can start with ourself and our self-empathy, and then that gives us a guide to have empathy for another person. And I know you want to get into these different aspects of empathy.
Yes. So Daniel Goleman has done most of the work around the concept of emotional intelligence. His work is just so powerful for so many reasons. So I invite people to explore all of that work that he's done on emotional intelligence. And I think the way that he describes types of empathy is really instructive for everybody listening. He describes 3 types. So the first is what he calls cognitive empathy. And he says that's basically when you're trying to walk a mile in another person's shoes. You're understanding somebody else's perspective. So because you know that I value integrative mental health, if I'm sharing something with you that's going on in the field, you're going to, if you say, I can see why you're saying that because blah, 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 that's you displaying cognitive empathy, because you understand what my worldview is and you're stepping into that to share that space with me.
Right.
All right. The second kind is social empathy. And that's where you're really sensing what the other person is feeling. And you really have to listen to be able to do that. And this is where you have to be able to listen to yourself and to the other person so that you can keep straight who's feeling what. If you're not really clear about that, it's easy to be wrapped up in what you're feeling and then just actually project that onto the other person.
That gets messy.
Yes, and that's the whole purpose of self-empathy too, is to be able to say, okay, actually, this is me. Mm-hmm. This other stuff that I'm sensing is them. Mm-hmm. And if you're a little confused and you're trying to dive in, people will say, well, no, that's not really it. And that's an opportunity to say, okay, actually, I've overlaid what I must be feeling a little bit. So let me move that to the side and try and interpret more and sense more what they're feeling. So that's social empathy.
Okay.
It's how you create rapport with people. When you walk away from a situation and you say, there was some chemistry there.
Right.
Social empathy has happened. When you walk away and you're like, oh, yeah, we really vibed. Mm-hmm. That's what social empathy is.
You're picking up on that.
And really at the heart of it is when people say, oh, yeah, we had a good vibe. Mm-hmm. That was it. And then the third type is empathic concern. So that's where that kind of is where the action piece comes in. It's not that you just understand their worldview. It's not that you're sensing what they're feeling. You want to help them with it. Mm-hmm. You want to be in that space and help them sort through it, even if it's just by listening to them. That's empathic concern. And so those 3 types of empathy, when you start to practice them in all your relationships, will transform them.
It's interesting because on one level, I felt like with each one, we got a little deeper.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and I see them as, so empathic concern is really a weaving together of all of them.
Right.
I'm understanding this person's perspective. I'm sensing what they're feeling, and I'm choosing to be in it with them to help them through it.
Yeah, that makes total sense. That's sort of like we got there. We're weaving all of these. I like that. I like the weaving. So when it comes to empathy, we also have some misses.
Yes. Now, Brene Brown, who is an actual rock star in social work.
Such a rock star.
Yes. As a social worker, I couldn't be more thrilled that we finally have a rock star.
Right?
Woo!
On Netflix, too.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Social work comes of age. Love it. All right. So, not just Brene Brown. I think hers is the most recent. Other people have done a lot of work and research on empathy misses, too. So there's like 5 or 6 that I want to talk about because I think these are the most common ways it shows up. And it can be really disconnecting and confusing for people because people often think when they're doing these things that they are employing empathy, and then they don't get the results that they thought. And then both people in the circumstance walk away feeling discouraged and disconnected, kind of like, well, they didn't get me at all.
Right.
Or, you know what, why did I even bother talking to them about this?
So with the misses, when you say that, it's like a misfire, basically. It's like I'm trying this, and it's not going in the direction that I thought it was going to be going in.
Yes, and I think when people hear these misses, they're going to understand how they're not empathy at all.
Okay.
Based on how we just described empathy.
Gotcha.
Okay, so the first one that I want to talk about, people refer to it in different ways, but it's basically the deer in the headlights. We've all been there. Mm-hmm. I know I've been there. I can think about it now, where something really hard is happening. You choose to share it with somebody, and they just stare at you. They literally just stare at you, and there's dead air. That's so awkward.
That's so uncomfortable.
It's the worst.
Yes.
And then the backpedaling starts.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, it's fine. I'll be fine. It's all good, blah, blah, blah. And then you go on to talking about something else.
Right.
That's complete avoidance. That's saying, I'm not getting in this. This is too threatening for whatever reason. And I would make a case that that's when people really need to listen to the other podcast episodes and do more work in therapy and reading to understand how to be more present. We talk about that in the episode we call Mindful Matters. I think that was in season 1.
Yes.
How to be more present and grounded, and then, understanding their emotional landscape so that they can keep themselves in check to be there for another person's difficult emotions. But if somebody has a deer in the headlights, it's because they're flooded.
Yes.
They're like, uh-oh, too much. Can't do it.
Go the other way.
Right. So it's obvious why that's a miss.
Yeah.
All right. The next one is silver lining right out of the gate. So it's a problem because it's dismissive. It's a problem because it's about you. It's not about the other person. It's about your concern. They're going to go too far deep in the hole and not be able to get out. It's about your discomfort with the pain. It's about, let's hurry up and figure out how this isn't as bad as we think it is so we can all start feeling better.
Right.
It just doesn't work. Because you don't feel heard.
Yeah.
You really don't feel heard. And that really relates to what we were talking about in the listening episode, where sometimes it's going to feel uncomfortable for a while.
Sometimes you just have to sit in that in that uncomfort and let it play out.
Yes. And that again relates to mindfulness, because when you can develop patience, you can be in the process and allow it to unfold without panicking, without trying to fix it, without trying to change it, without trying to move it. Those things, although they seem well-intentioned, are not based in empathy.
Right. It's almost like interrupting, someone who's maybe like, I'm sort of picturing a scenario here, but interrupting someone who's saying, hey, look, I'm feeling this, I'm overwhelmed, I'm this, I'm that, ... And you interrupt that to say, what can we do to fix this?
Yes. And you say, well, you know what? It could be worse. The silver lining is blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Immediately, I can think of recent circumstances in my life that shuts me down. I'm just like, well, conversation over.
Yes.
Done.
You're not leaving space for more.
No, it's a firefighter kind of approach.
Let's put it out.
Let's put this out.
Yeah.
And the best way to put it out is look at how it could be worse.
Right.
I mean, there's a place for that. There's a place for that in perspective. There's a place for that in perception. There's a place for that in gratitude practices are important. When we're talking about empathy, when somebody is experiencing a hardship, a struggle, and they are in it, that's not the time for that.
Right.
All right. So the third one is basically minimizing. So it's related. It's like a cousin to silver lining.
Right. I can see that.
And so that shows up with, let's say someone has just received a cancer diagnosis. And the particular type of cancer they have, maybe it's localized, maybe there's some pretty good stats for remission after surgical intervention. And you share that with someone and they immediately are like, well, it's a good thing it's treatable.
Right.
You're lucky. You're lucky.
Yeah.
In one way, perhaps. However, that's not the time or place.
And all of that sounds, I feel it. I feel that moment of just like, ugh.
Because that person has just gotten a cancer diagnosis. Yeah. That doesn't feel like, woo, lucky.
It's not the time.
Not the time.
Not the time. But all of it, I can see, as you mentioned, comes from a well-intentioned place, but it's not the right place and it's not the right reaction, and you can't minimize.
No, and I think at its heart, those missteps are fear-based.
Yes.
They're based in fear. I can't handle what's going on. If I don't get them out of this, they're going to not be able to handle what's going on. Mm-hmm. And I think the more that we realize we're stronger and more capable than we give ourselves credit for, then we can trust the process of emotional unfolding with another person. And I think, I know I'm biased because I do this for a living. I see it day in and day out. Maybe biased isn't the right word, but I'm really grounded in the knowledge that people will move through their pain because I see it all the time.
Right. You see people unfolding the emotion pretty constantly.
Yes, and I see it build and I see it intensify. And when space is held, when empathy is utilized, it brings them out because people don't want to be in it.
Yes.
People do want to heal. If I didn't believe that, I wouldn't do this work.
Right. Absolutely. So you've seen that process firsthand all day.
Day in, day out, day after day, week after week. Empathy really is a magic wand, and people will help you learn how to be empathic with them. They'll give you guidance. They'll say, that's not quite what I meant. I think I mean blah, blah, blah. So they'll try and stay in it in the hopes because we all just want to be seen and heard and validated. Mm-hmm. And then when that happens, we'll say, okay, let's move through this. And then that's when the other things have a place and a time. Okay, so fourth one is giving advice. And to tell you the truth, true confession time, of all of these empathy misses that we're going through, I'd say this one is the one I'm most apt to. If I'm not really present, this is the miss that I'll employ. The other ones I'm pretty good at, but giving advice, I'll immediately move into that. Mm-hmm. And that's just not appropriate. It's just not appropriate because I don't know.
That's a little bit of one of my go-tos as well. Because, again, you want to help. You want to facilitate the healing.
Yes.
You want to get to the better place.
Yes.
But jumping right in there with advice.
Right. And then, underneath that really is, it's not my timetable.
Yeah.
It's not my timetable. I don't get to decide that. This is also, though, where the boundary episode is really important because it's important to know how much empathy we can really show for another.
Right.
We have to respect what our limits are given whatever else is going on in our life. So we have to have that awareness as well, because we can't be everything to everyone at all times.
You have to put it in perspective.
You have to put it in perspective. So sometimes with some people, you might be able to display some cognitive empathy. And because of everything else going on in your life, that's what you've got to give.
Right.
And it's important to know that's where I need to stop with this.
Because, where your cup is, where your level,
Yes.
you've got to be, you can't give what you don't have.
Right. Right. And I think when we're not respecting that or not aware of that, that puts us at a greater risk of some of these empathy misses because we're not present.
So number 5?
Sharing a story about someone you know who has gone through something similar.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, I know. It's awkward, isn't it?
It is.
It's awkward. Okay, let me just pause for a minute and let all the listeners know that if you're in your car, in your kitchen, cooking dinner, doing whatever, putting on makeup in the bathroom, laying in bed, whatever you're doing, and you're like feeling a little cringy or a little like, it's okay. It's okay. We're all human, and we can't know how to move beyond our empathy misses until we know what empathy misses we're using.
Exactly.
So we're all in this together. This is not about judgment. This is not about blame. This is about understanding and growing beyond.
I've had people do this to me, and I've done it to people as well. It's that moment, and I see it in other people when they do it to me. It's that moment where you're looking for something to say and somehow to relate. And that's the only thing, your brain goes to that file.
Right.
And says, ooh, I knew someone who also ...
Yes.
And pulls that one out.
Yes.
And it's not the best way.
Well, here's why it's an empathy miss. Because that other person's experience is that other person's experience. And empathy really is about sharing the person's experience that's in front of you right now.
Yes.
From their point of view. So sometimes it's going to be real that you're going to be able to say, I have no words right now, and I'm here. I'm here with it, with you. I'll sit in it with you right now.
That's powerful.
It so is, because it also validates the overwhelm that they might be experiencing with it. This sucks. This sucks. I can feel it. Yep. This is terrible.
That's powerful. That's good. Because your first instinct is to go to something in your filing cabinet and be like, I got something.
Yes, Joe over here had that happen to him, and this is what he did to fix it.
Yes.
Okay, well, good for Joe.
Yeah. I'm not Joe. This isn't Joe's situation. These aren't Joe's feelings.
I'm still absorbing
Yeah.
it. I'm not ready to fix it yet.
Yeah.
I'm still absorbing it. Mm-hmm. This last one, another true confession. This is the one that I get most reactive around. This is the one that shuts me down quicker than the others. It's the competitor.
Yes.
Oh, I know what you mean. I had this happen.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Well, guess what happened to me?
Yeah. So this is how I handled that when this happened to me. ...
Oh, wow. Yeah. I had that once because it immediately disconnects. Suddenly the person who's absorbing something, who's asking for someone to be in it with them, suddenly now the lens is totally turned on the other person. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Well, let's hear about your experience then.
Yes.
Never mind. I guess we're done.
So back to you.
Yeah.
So you took the talking stick back.
Yes.
Wow. Those are really, really powerful.
Yes. They disconnect, they isolate. And it's not just the person who is in need of the empathy. It disconnects and isolates everyone concerned. That's what I really want listeners to hear. You know, when we employ these empathy misses, we're disconnecting too. This is where I think sometimes mindfulness and mindfulness-based approaches are not well understood. When people can really delve into mindfulness-based practices, they can stay more grounded in mess. And when we can stay more grounded in mess, we have a better shot at really utilizing empathy. Because then mess doesn't scare us.
Really, that's what we're all looking for, because we have mess, and mess is there a lot because that's life. It's up, it's down, it's this, it's that. To be more grounded in the mess.
Yes. Now, here's people I think sometimes are afraid that means they're going to be enabling mess. They're going to be indulging mess. That's not what we're talking about.
Right. Totally different.
We're talking about witnessing it, acknowledging it,
holding space
for it, because that is what reminds people that they have coping mechanisms to move through it. And it reminds people that of the value and worth of moving through it because someone has held space for their mess.
I love that. Someone just held space for my mess.
And now I want to move through my mess. I'm ready to clean it up because someone saw it.
There's real healing in that. I know that's funny, and that the way we've said it makes me giggle, but there's real healing in that.
There's real healing in that. I remember this probably happened, maybe 20 years ago. And it was this person I was dating at the time. And it was a really lighthearted way that he employed this. It was super restorative, though. I was going through something really difficult. And I had a particularly difficult day where I was really upset. Very upset, really emotional. And he came over or something like that, and I said, I'm just probably not good company right now. I'm very emotional, difficult day. This happened. And he said, well, coincidentally, that's what I'm down for. So let's hear it. And you know what? Something that simple started the restoration process for me.
Wow.
So it doesn't have to be a really formal,
elaborate,
let me get out my notebook. Step 1, step 2. That person in that moment, he just saw me and said, okay, I'll just sit in it with you for a little bit and let's see what happens.
I love that. We have one question for Q&A.
Lay it on me.
This is a very good question because this was a powerful workshop that you had. The Food Mood Workshop.
Food Mood was awesome.
Question was, will you have another? I'm sorry, I missed it.
Yes. Yes. And for all the people who said, wanted to and couldn't, when is this happening again? We definitely are. We are definitely going to do Food Mood again. There was a lot of comment around other aspects of a more regular Food Mood group. So we're looking at additional programming. We definitely are going to do the 12-week group again because it really is building blocks for people to transform their entire relationship with food and really understand how to support mood management and mental health and wellness through food. So we need all 12 weeks to do that. We're also looking at additional programming, maybe a monthly group where we do a drop-in topic about food and mood. We're looking at perhaps a reboot in the fall. So yes, subscribe to the newsletter and you will be the first to know when Food Mood is coming again.
So it wasn't just a one and done.
Not a one and done.
It's coming back at you. Allison'sIntegrativeHealth.org is the website. That is the hub for everything you can imagine. And share this podcast with someone you know because it will help them where they are too. And that will be you sharing empathy with them.
Yes, and we all want to share the magic wand. So share it. Share it far and wide. We all need our magic wands.
Allison Sullivan and Associates Integrative Mental Health Team is located in beautiful, historic downtown Fredericksburg, Virginia, and at Allison'sIntegrativeHealth.org. New and exciting workshops are available to you that will give you personal attention to meet your needs right where you are on your journey. Sign up for our newsletter to be the first to know when registration opens for workshops like Aromatherapy 101. Here's how you can discover to use aromatherapy to support your health. Did you know that a blend of frankincense, peppermint, and lemongrass supports wisdom, optimism, and it will help you release unhealthy attachments? This is where you can learn how to support your mental, emotional, and physical health with the Essential Oils workshops available to you monthly for no charge. Come meet the team. Schedule your session today for psychotherapy, hypnotherapy, yoga, and massage, and begin restoring yourself in mind, body, and spirit. If you'd like to call, the number is 540-907-0991 and online at Allison'sIntegrativeHealth.org. As Allison always says, self-care will save your life. Let go and lean in.